We have a tweet from George. I don't know you, George, but you have this tweet. Breaking: Trump crowd chants VP, VP, VP after Vivek gets done speaking. Trump says he's going to be working with us for a long time. Here's the video clip. Let's play it for you right now.
Thank you. Wow, how was that? Pretty good, right? That was pretty good, and he's a fantastic guy, and he's really, he's got something that's very special because he started off with a Zippo, and he ended up very strong. He did a great job. I was actually surprised when he called because he was doing well, and it's an honor to have his endorsement. He's going to be working with us, and he'll be working with us for a long time.
He's going to be working with us
for a long time.
Because we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Vivek needs to work in a Trump administration. If he's going to be the next guy after Trump, and I think he can be, he needs government experience. One of the pitfalls, one of the reasons why Vivek was not the guy this time around, Trump had that first term. He walked through the minefield. He hit some of these mines. He knows where some of them are. He can do a better job this time around. Perfect? No. Good? Yes. Vivek, good speaker, good ideas, great ideas, in fact. But he doesn't know where those landmines are. Landmines are in the same way Trump does. So if Vivek gets a position in the Trump administration, then coming into 2027, he begins campaigning. He will have the experience behind him. And I got to tell you, man, Trump is this unrefined ore, and Vivek is refined. When Donald Trump explains something, it works for the average person, and he's this brash, crass guy who's going to say it like it is. Vivek can lay it out analytically and he can sell it to you. So I think this team up, I don't know to what extent. What do you guys think? You think he's VP?
I think that would be great. What do you think, Adam?
I don't think he's VP. He's just too big of a personality. I think he's a cabinet secretary because cabinet secretary, your name will be constantly in the news. You can go on TV all the time. You can create policy. You could be be ready, prepared for 2028. VP, I think he needs someone like Trump needs someone like a Tim Scott, a more calmer.
Ben Carson.
Tim Scott.
Sorry, keep going.
The alpha that Trump is, and I feel like Vivek is an alpha but more refined, like you said, would just be too much together. It's just, you can't put two electric, like an outlet, you can't put two positive together. It would just spark too much, right? You can't do that.
Yeah. So Secretary of State, what do you think?
Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Commerce. Maybe chief of staff, but his personality might be too big for chief of staff.
He needs a front-facing position because he's so good on camera. He's really charming. He can really communicate a message.
Think about him on TV every week, Meet the Press, or national talking about economic policy.
He runs circles around these people.
Someone like a Blinken.
Be great.
Yeah, you want him to be front-facing for sure. I take him seriously when he came on this show and said that he didn't want to be VP. And I think Tim's right that having more experience in the government would be good. And in some ways, VPs aren't super known for what they contribute to an administration. There's a rumor that it'll be Doug Burgum because based on what Trump said last night.
Burgum was with him there.
He endorsed him, didn't he?
Yeah.
He endorsed him. And last night when Trump was giving his remarks, he said something like, oh, he's gonna be around. Like he had this like smirk and stuff like that.
Burgum 2024?
I don't know.
No one will see that coming.
I think that's I think he needs, But
he needs a personality that's quieter than Vivek's. And Burgum's is quieter than Vivek's.
I totally disagree. He had Mr. Quiet personality and stupid Pence.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out.
Again, though.
I think he should go for someone nice and big.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi. I like Tulsi. I like Tucker. I like anybody who can go out there and rev up a crowd almost as good as Trump does, because also he's going to need somebody on the campaign trail while he's being dragged around by, stupid Merrick Garland and his minions.
Yeah.
I would love to see Trump just put a candy bar on Merrick Garland's head.
So funny. Again, that was one of the best moments.
It's terrific.
I think that there are a lot of potentially good picks. I think Burgum would be weird because North Dakota is not, necessarily a stronghold.
Bad
I guess
pick.
it's different. But the way he was talking about him, there is a belief that Burgum is involved somehow. So you could start piecing together who his cabinet's going to be. My question with Vivek, and it could be great for him to gain experience on the federal level and then potentially run again in 2028. I wish that he would take some of the really innovative things that he talked about, like civic engagement and different things during his campaign, and apply it on a small scale in Ohio. It's just that the timing doesn't line up where he could take a position in Ohio and then run again in 2028, from what I know.
I don't know. Burgum does not seem like VP. That you may as well put just Trump blank.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
think
like
Maybe that's what
it's not
Trump
like
wants,
you know,
though.
I don't mean to be these cherry picking like Democrats, but I don't think we need a white male from North Dakota to help with the ticket. Maybe this,
Well,
at
I
least
like
if-
the old way where you just get the second guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, so Biden.
No,
No,
well,
DeSantis?
Yeah, right. The old way was whoever got second place in the general would be the vice president.
Yeah, yeah. That's how
That
you ended
actually
up with
was good.
Adams.
The argument there was that the country would have representation for those who lost the election, and it makes sense. Now it's not. So
No.
half the country feels disenfranchised.
You know who's a very articulate and doing a great job out of New York? Elise Stefanik, the congresswoman.
Stefanik has
fun.
done a good job.
Excellent speaker. She went to Harvard. She's a real fighter.
That's why she's
I
so
don't
pissed
see.
at Harvard.
I don't see VP there though. Tulsi Gabbard is a long shot, but
Very long
you kind
shot.
of make sense if when people say it, you're like, okay, I can kind of understand why she'd be VP. People are saying Kristi Noem.
Noem.
Yeah,
Well-
she kind of feels like VP.
And she's been a Trump ally for a really long time. With Stefanik, I wouldn't want to lose her from Congress. I think she's doing really good things, and it's nice to see that representation in New York. I mean, part of the problem is that if you lift anyone out of position they're currently in, that becomes a vacuum, and you don't know what's going to fill it.
I got it. Trump, 2024.
Which one,
You
Barron?
think Don?
Yes.
Junior?
Yeah, Don Jr.
Eric?
Don Jr.
Don Jr.
Yeah, but then the Democrats would freak out and be like, "He's just putting his own kids in. This is crazy. He's a
Just like George
dictatorship."
Bush. Just
Yeah.
like George
It's a
Bush.
monarchy.
And the Adamses.
Yeah, it's gonna.
Don
be great.
Jr. is great, but I can understand why he's a family member. They wouldn't do it, but I think Don Jr. would be a great choice too.
Do you think he'd run for office on his own though? I mean, would he run for state or Senate or something like that?
I don't think.
before?
I don't know if Don Jr. is going to go that route. I don't know. I don't see it.
I've
I
always-
think he could be a VP, but I think the play is to get someone outside of the Trump space. That's why Kristi Noem makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Tulsi Gabbard could make sense, but it definitely seems like a 0.1% likelihood. I like Tulsi Gabbard as VP because military experience, fairly moderate, could attract former Democrats and disaffected liberals.
She would also do some work, right? I mean, Kamala Harris doesn't do anything at all. Tulsi Gabbard would be like, I have a position. I'm going to do some stuff.
Now, Kamala Harris entertains us every day with her Veep-style speeches.
Mm-hmm.
She's unburdened by what might have been.
Man, it is amazing when she says stuff like,
How does she
the
keep saying
community
that?
is a good thing because it's the community. And it's like, and you're like, what?
What?
Well, and the Biden administration, initially, they had her out there, they moved her to the background, and now that we're getting closer to 2024, they're kind of being like, it's the Biden-Harris administration.
They really are trying to sell that.
Yeah,
and it's
but for
just
the
not
middle 2
working.
years, they were like, stand in the back and don't say anything, because she was just not good, right?
Well, they
I
were
mean,
trying to get her to do stuff, and she wouldn't do it.
True, she
Remember
was
the
our
whole
border czar.
and then her office was like, no, she's not the border czar. She's working on the root causes of migration in the Northern Triangle countries, and she's not even doing that.
No, she's
and then
not.
she was like, actually, it's LGBTQIA plus violence that is the problem. So we need to prioritize them for asylum, which then they had an
a
EO
terrible idea.
about that. That's
Have
the
you
deal.
guys seen that meme where it's LGBTQ plus and it's let's get Biden to quit plus Kamala?
Nice.
That was very
That'd
smart.
be funny.
Very funny. The internet is undefeated.
I mean, I wish we could pick VP based on like what issue they are going to rabidly champion during the administration, because then I would love to see, really serious immigration restrictionists go into office. But I just don't think that's going to happen. So much of the VP selection is saying who can we court in terms of electoral college votes. And
where's
it's
RFK Jr.? Is he still around?
He was in North Carolina over the weekend. Alad was there covering him, and he has an event in West Virginia coming up. I think he's doing pretty well for an independent, but he's not. It's sort of hard because he's not in the news cycle because there's no primary for the independent. He's like either just gonna make it or
but
he's not.
he's also. I don't think he's taking Vivek went from 0 with in a year. Look at this. He went to fourth place in the primary. He went to 8% in the Iowa caucus. I mean, this is amazing, and he did it. And it even, got the Trump camp worried because he was getting so much support. But he went around the press circuit. He went to podcasters, media personalities, and he made himself available to them. RFK is not doing that so much. He has an opportunity to get attention. He won't take it.
And that 8%, he took it right from Trump. Those are all Trump voters.
Well,
And
actually,
Vivek took.
Technically, yes.
Or maybe he grew the pie with young people.
He did. That's what it is. So among first-time voters, Vivek was in first place. Mm-hmm. And Ron DeSantis actually, according to one poll, got more Gen Z than any other candidate. But Vivek got a good amount of Trump supporters, but a lot of first-time voters. So I think that's the opportunity here for Trump. Vivek targeting new voters, brilliant, because now he goes to the Trump camp and says, I didn't think I was going to be able to pull it off. I didn't pull it off. You got my endorsement. I can bring in new voters for you and get those numbers up. I'm going to pull in voters from areas you've never seen before.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And I think that's a good sign for, conservative values or maybe libertarian values generally, because they were really drawn to Ramaswamy's campaign. And ultimately, that's the future, right? So it's easy to focus on what happens this November, but what we want long term is for new voters to be interested in voting for candidates who represent long-term investment in a future that's going to be steady and provide a prosperous life for a lot of people.
Well, part of the problem with that is that we have no shared vision of either America's future or of America's past.
Yeah.
We have no real social cohesion or vision for what the American character is or understanding of where we came from. It's just a constant fracturing.
But when do you think the fracture started? Do you have an estimate?
This is something that is, that has recently been coming up. I was actually talking to Inez Stepman today about it on her podcast, High Noon. Something I've been talking to Jack Posobiec about. He's been talking about leftist revolutions. And it was actually really fascinating. He had this series on Human Events Daily during the period between Christmas and New Year's. And it was like 4 episodes about cultural revolutions or like leftist revolutions. And it was... I forget what they all were, but there were a bunch of them and they were really fascinating. But the one that I found most fascinating was the one about the 1960s in America, the Cultural Revolution in America, which I had never conceived of as a revolution. I'd never conceived of it as a leftist revolution. Yeah. To a certain extent, I just thought of it as, my stupid parents they're not stupid. I love you guys, mom and dad.
Your silly parents. My
parents were sort of part of the whole hippie thing. They were boomers. They came of age during that period. I thought, it seemed like a very cultural moment. And it was something where, fashion would take from it as I was growing up. It was always like, now we're in the 60s moment again. Now we're in it again. Now we're in it again. But I never thought of it as a revolution. And I've been thinking about that a lot. And then, the civil rights movement and that whole era, which I always had I thought I had a very clear view of it. And I've been reconsidering it. But I think that a lot of it started then when you had this huge generation of young people saying to their parents, everything you taught us was wrong. Everything you thought about the country is wrong. Everything you think about us and our future is wrong. We're going to destroy everything you built. We're going to dance around in that rubble and we're going to build on top of rubble. And I think that's what happened. So then when you hit the 90s, which in my view, like I was in my 20s, I guess, in the 90s, you hit the 90s when you had a very, what seemed to me a colorblind society. You had a lot of great culture. That was like, I was hanging out with a bunch of art kids downtown New York City and there was just money everywhere. It's like you'd go out and like somebody would pick up the tab. Somebody would, somebody would fund the giant art show. There was money left over. Who even knows what was going on? But, it seemed like this pinnacle of civilization, but it was really apparently just built on top of rubble, the rubble of our grandparents, of our religion, of our culture, of our shared past, of our appreciation for our history.
I grew up in a small town on Long Island, Port Jeff Station, and my neighbors were African-American black, but never had discussions about race, never had discussions about any of this. And we were just my neighbor, and we liked each other and got along well. Saying all along my life I had black friends, never thought of it. I think somewhere along the line when Obama got elected, at the very beginning of his term, there was this incident at Harvard University with this black professor. Right off the bat. And the police called because he was being obnoxious. He was screaming.
Something about a beer.
And right off the bat, the president of the United States took the side of the obnoxious professor.
That's right.
And went against the white police officers. And it became a race issue when it had nothing to do with race. And the media jumped on this and said they need a lesson. The police need to go to, sensitivity training. And I think somewhere that incident, I feel like, stood out really in this lesson where Obama wanted to turn back the clock on race relations. And I feel like that's kind of like, that was the start of it.
Didn't he have
almost.
both those guys to the
And
White
then he
House
had
for
a beer
beer?
summit for what? Because the guy was being obnoxious and he had to accuse the white police officers?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.